Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's a reporter for NBC4 and a columnist with the current newspapers. Hi, Tom.
Good afternoon.
Later in the broadcast, we'll be talking with D.C. Attorney General Carl Racine. He'll be talking about frivolous tenant evictions and whether D.C.'s judicial system is broken, as Chief Cathy Lanier says it is. But joining us now in studio is the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe. Governor McAuliffe, thank you for joining us.
Kojo, great to be back with you. Tom, great to be back with you. Saw you last week at the Redskins lunch.
Yes.
We're back.
Well, if you have questions or comments for Governor McAuliffe, you can go to our website, kojoshow.org, watch the live video stream there and ask a question, or shoot us an email to kojo@wamu.org, a tweet at Kojo Show, or you can simply call 800-433-8850. Metro ridership. Metro has now before it, Tom and Governor McAuliffe, 4 proposals, and the public hearing on those proposals is expected to be held in mid-October. This is all very confusing to me, Tom, which is why we have you here.
Well, the problem is they're doing Safetrack, which is the effort to make up for decades of negligence and putting off repairs. But we seem to be in almost a death spiral here of the repairs are making people skip Metro, and as they skip Metro, the revenue drops. As the revenue drops, the Metro system is hurting for money. As it hurts for money, it has to look to maybe raise fares, which it doesn't want to do, and it's just terrible. It's just a horrible situation, and I don't know. Maybe the governor can give us some ideas, because you were very critical of the foot dragging to get a new director. Paul Weatherfeld has been, as the general manager, is getting good marks for working hard, but it still seems that Metro is in a downward spiral, cutting back service, weekend service, night service. Low-income workers, not people out having fun, but low-income workers who go early in the morning or stay late at night, won't have a way to get home. Where are we on Metro?
Yeah, and listen, we've talked to the folks at Metro. I, for a year, was very angry that they had not made a decision earlier on getting someone in to run the day-to-day operations. As you know, Virginia was very insistent that we get someone, Tom, that safety was the big issue. I said we can always hire a bean counter. You can get them in there, but we need someone who is going to get this system up, respected, and I think Paul's doing a great job, and he's going through, and you're exactly right, it has been years and years of neglect on this system. I think the ridership is down about 11%, which is impacting, of course, the revenues.
I'm one of them. I'm one of them. I don't
You've
ride
given
it.
up?
I gave it up.
Yeah. And a lot of people. And, so one, the Safetrack's doing it, but I think people have just given up. We got to get the system back where you get on it. You know what time you're going to get off. You're going to have room in the car to be able to get on it. And that's the process we're going through. They've asked for a fare increase. I think D.C. has already said they'll use their regional veto to veto that, so that's off the table at this stage. But we haven't actually seen an actual budget. They haven't presented it to us in Virginia. When we actually get a budget, I'll meet with our Northern Virginia transportation folks, and we'll come up and the other stakeholders. This is a vibrant system. I mean, I think what it has done for the Commonwealth of Virginia, look at the Silver Line, go out to Tyson's, look at Reston Wheelie, and now out to the airport. It's a dynamic system. But safety is the number one issue, and I have been harking on this topic with my Secretary of Transportation, Aubrey Lane, for a very long time. We've got a guy in now doing safety. Let's give him the time to finish up that process, and then we've all got to come together and make sure this system works. But we don't want to put money in until it's being spent well.
Well, you can be really safe, as I've said on this program before. You can just shut it down, you'd be 100% safe. But can you use your persuasive powers, particularly maybe if your candidate for president wins, to get the federal government to change its policy that it will not give a cent to operating funds?
Yeah, I think that's all. Tom, great question. And I think that has to all be part of the discussion. We've got I think we're 60 days from the election. Once that's over, I think I will have a long list of items for President Clinton for us to work on in this region and for the Commonwealth of Virginia. But this is and Mayor Bowser and Governor Hogan and I, the three of us, we all want the same thing. You can't shut it down. This is such an economic driver for all of our region's respective areas, and this is such an economic driver. And as you say, Tom, it's important to people so they can get around. They don't own cars. How are they going to get around without the Metro system?
It's jobs.
It's jobs. So we've got to fix it. We're making progress on safety. Once that is done, then I think we all need to come together and talk about the financial viability. But asking us for pay increases, asking the jurisdictions to put more money in when they still were not confident they have their act together is just a non-starter.
In case you're just joining us, our guest is Terry McAuliffe, the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Federal prosecutors say they will not be retrying former Governor Bob McDonnell or his wife Maureen on corruption charges. They will dismiss the indictments. You approve of this, despite the fact that you're a member of the other party.
And I've said this for a long time, Kojo. It's time to move on. This man has paid his price. He made some mistakes. He admitted those mistakes. And we need to move forward, for the sake of the McDonnell family and for the sake of the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's time for us all to move on. As I say, he's paid a very tough price. The good news in Virginia, when I went in, I did an executive order, a $100 gift ban on myself, my wife, my entire family, every person in my administration. And now, through legislation that we've sponsored, we have ethics legislation finally in Virginia. Before, as you know, you literally could take anything you wanted. I mean, someone can come in, as long as you report it, you can get a $10 million check. It really didn't.
That's been an issue for Tim Kaine a little bit in his campaign because he reported everything, but it was still there.
That's right. And that was the law.
Yeah.
And as long as he reported it. So, and listen, so we now have a $100 gift ban. I mean.
Except that $100 gift ban applies only to lobbyists or people who hire lobbyists. It would not have applied to Johnny Williams Sr., who lavished $175,000 in gifts on Governor McDonnell and his wife. So what's changed there?
Well, you could argue that he was in lobbying. I mean, that was what they all talked about. He was trying to get this anti-block or whatever the heck it was called into it. But right now, I mean, listen, if you're doing business with the Commonwealth, but I think because of that, everybody's really paying attention. I mean, listen, if I go to a UVA Virginia Tech game, which I'm entitled to as governor, I buy my own tickets. If I go to a Flying Squirrels game, I buy my own tickets. I just think we're in a different place in Virginia. Is it perfect? No. But, we're in a lot better place off than we were before.
So what next for Governor McDonnell? Obviously, he's relieved more than happy, just relieved. But Dave Albo, the Republican delegate from Fairfax County, was on this show a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he would trust Governor McDonnell to raise his children if he, for some reason, died. That he would love, because he's such a great guy. But he also said McDonnell was stupid. That's the word he used. Yeah. And he should never get back into elective politics again. Where do you see Governor McDonnell going now as this recedes into the past?
And listen, I've been clear from day one on this. Well, I mean, I'm a friend of Bob McDonnell's. Now, we're from different parties. We clearly have different ideological issues that we differ greatly on. But at the end of the day, Bob McDonnell was nothing but nice to me. When I won during the transition, and in a democracy, we're not all supposed to agree. I mean, He and I are not supposed to agree. He's a Republican. I'm a Democrat. There's things we do agree on, but there's things, listen, this is what you have elections for.
The future?
Right?
Yeah, for now for him. Did you see him getting back in?
He's done with elective office. He said that in a statement yesterday. But I could see Bob, somebody asked me that yesterday. I thought, maybe being the president of Regent University or something. I could see him doing something like that. I've talked to him. He's working on a project in Virginia Beach on the arena and other things, trying to do economic development down in the beach area. But it's time for all of us to move on. And, we have huge challenges we're all facing, let it be metro, economic issues. We've got an election coming on. What's happening with sequestration. Remember, a year from this coming October, think of that, sequestration trigger hits again. That is a huge driver in Virginia. We have 27 military installations, the largest naval base in the world, the Pentagon, CA, Quantico, Langley, Oceana. If they cannot get their act together and we go through another round of sequestration, between 2011 through 13, we lost $9.8 billion in Virginia, direct spending, equated to the potential loss of 115,000 jobs. These are the things that we should be focusing on.
Well, you said last month after you met with business and legislative leaders that the outlook was not exactly optimistic in terms of the Commonwealth's economy. So how will you maintain state investments in priorities you've set, like education?
Yeah, and I did just put $1 billion in our budget, the largest investment in Virginia history, because that's how you build the workforce of the future. So, we're growing. We had about a 1.7% growth last year. Now, We came in about $268 million in our $18 billion budget, $268 million under that. We created the jobs. We created 86,000 jobs in that year. But what we're finding in 2/3 of the states who have now reported in are experiencing the same thing. There's job creation, but the newer jobs are lower wage jobs, this whole disruptive economy, part-time workers.
That's true in the news business.
Yeah. That's
Glad
right.
to say I'm not new in it.
Yeah.
But it's a serious issue. There might be jobs, but they're paid less.
And listen, that's why we put this money in Virginia into the budget. We have jobs open in Virginia. Kojo, right now in Virginia, I have 37,000 high-tech jobs open. In that, 17,000 cyber jobs. Starting pay is $88,000. They are open. They're ready. So we've got to do a better job with education to align the skill sets with the jobs that exist today. That's why I said we're redesigning our high schools. They don't work in America anymore. They're big buildings with classrooms, with seats. You get credit for seat time. Forget all that. Let's put our core courses early. Let's get industry credentials. Let's get our kids in high school actually an experience in what it is and what the jobs are available today, and get them. Let's have computer. Let's have code writing. We have jobs, 88,000, Coach. I don't know if you have children, but let me tell you that. That's a good starting pay for a kid coming out of school.
But there are a lot of people who would not be, even if you tried to train them, wouldn't be qualified for that. But there are a lot of people in the construction world, in the industry, whoever gets elected president, whether it's Clinton or Trump or whomever, do we need another infrastructure great leap forward? The one that Obama did was significant during the recession, but it didn't do nearly enough.
No,
and
couldn't agree
Metro is
with you
an
more.
example of it.
And Hillary has promised this, a massive infrastructure. We've got thousands and thousands of bridges, roads that are in disrepair today. We have them in
Right
this
here.
region as
The
well.
Memorial
as you know.
Bridge.
Memorial Bridge. American Legion Bridge. We can go through a lot of these that are really in tough shape today. A major infrastructure investment to rebuild our roads, our bridges, to make sure our infrastructure, our electrical grid all over this country needs a tremendous amount of investment to take the next level. And that's where our education system has to change from where we've done it in the past. Too many of our children are graduating with a lot of debt, and guess what?
Right.
Not a skill set to match jobs that are open in this new, what I call the 21st century economy. So I'm very proud. In Virginia, we're leading the way. We put $1 billion into education. We have the first workforce development grant in the United States of America, which we just funded. We'll pay 2/3. You want to go be a truck driver? We'll pay 2/3 the cost for you to go get that credential. You pay 1/3, we pay 2/3. Right now, we have 46,000 truck drivers open in America. We need to fill these jobs.
I can see Tom having a future as a truck driver. I'd like to move on to another
Oh,
controversy.
nice paying jobs, $45,000.
And the country music, and I used to have a CB radio,
Another
too.
controversial issue, but I let a call lead us into it. So please put on your headphones
Okay.
and listen to what Jenny in Alexandria, Virginia has to say. Jenny, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Governor McCullough.
Hello, Jenny.
If I could, I would give you a hug right now.
Well, come on down. Come over to the radio show. Kojo and Tom could use one, too.
I just want to thank you so much. I got my rights restored, and they were taken away.
Great.
And now I got a picture of myself holding up your letter saying I can vote. And I framed it. I'm so happy I framed it.
That is fantastic, Jenny. Now, do me one favor. Make sure you vote. And make sure you tell all your friends. All they have to do is get into restore.virginia.gov, and we'll immediately expedite and get your rights back to the other folks.
And Jenny, thank you very much for your call. Republican legislators plan to go to court again over the restoration of Jenny and others' voting rights, they say. Your latest move to individually restore rights is in effect no different than the previous blanket clemency order. What's different is each case, in fact, being examined. You've already approved 13,000 people, presumably including Jenny in that group.
Let's frame this issue what's most important here, Kojo. I say, what kind of commonwealth are we going to be? Are we going to be a commonwealth of second chances? When I took the action I took on April 22nd for 206,000 felons, 40 states in the District of Columbia already make that automatic. So it wasn't like I was the first. I was the 41st. These people have served their time. They're back in society, paying taxes, going to our grocery stores, but 40 states in D.C. had already done that. I don't understand why the Republicans continually want to deny these people access to so that they can vote. I tell them, go earn their right to vote. So I did it on April 22nd. The Constitution is very clear in Virginia. I took action after the 4 leading constitutional scholars, including A.E. Dick Howard, who drafted the 71 Constitution, said I had the full authority to do it. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court, which I think was a very bad opinion, said that I didn't have the authority by a 4-3 vote. That's their right. They did it. So they said you now have to go through the process and do it individually. So that's what they did, and they asked me to do is exactly what I'm doing. In fact, Tommy Norman, who has just come out with a crazy constitutional amendment.
We should say that his proposal is to automatically restore rights to some nonviolent offenders.
After you pay court costs back, which I eliminated, and he would make Virginia the worst state in America behind Alabama and Mississippi. So if you're a violent offender, you are permanently disenfranchised for the rest of your life. So if you're an 18-year-old kid and you get in a bar fight, never, ever in Virginia will you ever get your rights back. And yet Bernie Madoff could come back to Virginia and get his rights back. It's just, why are we going through this? You know, they're trying now to use the judiciary to beat me on this. I won for governor. I got the most votes any Democrat ever got for governor. I got about 1,070,000 votes. Why? 70,000. Why are you trying to use the judiciary to stop me from doing what I think helps Virginia move forward, gets rid of a tough past that we've had? 40 states and D.C. have already done it. I'm not giving gun rights back. I'm not reducing your sentence. I'm merely saying once you're back in society, we want you feeling good. Because if you don't have that code, Joe, let me tell you, recidivism rates, if you treat people like second-class citizens, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of issues and a lot of problems. Let's do the right thing. Second chances matter to people.
Tom, where did this come from? You have, as governor, you have a zillion things that you have to do. I was trying to go back in your campaign for governor, both of them.
Yeah.
That this wasn't a big...
a little shot at
I'm
me.
sorry, a little shade there, both of them.
It's all right. I did get crushed first time.
I'm glad you heard it. But this wasn't a campaign issue. Who was it or how was it that this came on your agenda? As important as you just described it, what was the genesis of it?
The whole issue of helping people, giving people second chances from the day I got in office and went through and researched what I had the ability to do.
Which is a lot as the governor of Virginia.
Well, but sure, but this is as important as anything else. And let me tell you, I did 18,000 times before I took the action on April 22nd. So I had done more in my 2 years as governor than the past 7 governors in their 4-year terms the entire time combined. So over 28 years of my predecessors, I did more in 2 years. So this wasn't new. I did 18,000. But then the process, why am I going through this every single day like this? Let's just join the other 40 states in America, and let's just make it automatic, and let's move forward.
You recently made the case for bringing Washington's football team, the Washington Redskins, to Virginia. What is your pitch to owner Dan Snyder and the team? Prince George's County Executive Rashawn Baker says, "Don't count me out." Meanwhile, you're busy squaring off with D.C. Councilmember Jack Evans.
Jack and I are great buddies, as Tom knows. He actually
that was a great TV story.
Contributor to my campaign. Yeah, no.
That's right.
And listen, I think the Redskins are looking at all 3 jurisdictions. Let me tell all the Virginia residents, they should understand how important the Redskins are to us. $200 million payroll. Most, if not 100% of the players live in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Bruce Allen has said 65% of their revenues come from Virginia residents. Most of the season ticket holders are Virginia residents. So, first of all, this is an important economic driver for the Commonwealth of Virginia. They already are a huge economic driver. They're a huge employer in our state, which is important. So we're actively in negotiations. You know, I said during training camp we're in serious negotiations, and everyone went, "Ooh, what does that mean?" Well, when you're
you just said actively negotiating.
And we are actively.
You're actually discussing.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything different than I'm sure what Maryland and D.C. are doing. What I have always said is if we can structure a deal where I 100% protect the taxpayers, but I can create a whole new economic activity for us and help this region. If you look at some of the most recent stadium deals that have gone on, like L.A., there was no taxpayer money involved at all. Mm-hmm. You use it through development rights and other things. So I don't know if we're going to get it, but we're negotiating just as D.C. and Maryland are. There's a lot of reasons why you should be in Virginia. I've already mentioned them. You know, the Redskins love our military. You know, 800,000 plus veterans. We're the first state in America to end veteran homelessness. We have functionally ended it, certified by the Department of HUD. I think the whole veteran, the active duty military piece makes a lot of argument, but it's got to make sense economically for both sides.
Making sense
you can't get there unless you're negotiating with
Making
them.
sense economically. We got an email from Mary in Arlington.
Sure.
Please ask Governor McAuliffe why he even engages in stadium discussion. Repeated studies show these are more expensive than the tax breaks governments offer. And Dan Snyder is icky. Let Maryland have this turkey of a stadium deal. rights matter.
You don't know the deal until you actually get it. And listen, I have a lot of projects we are negotiating with around the globe as we speak.
That sounds very Trumpian, making all the art of the deal.
Well, I mean, listen.
But you are.
He didn't say fantastic.
But that's what governor has to do.
Right,
we have done, in fairness, 788 economic development projects since I've been governor. We have brought in $13.8 billion, Tom, of new capital since I've been governor. Not counting Kojo, but that's $5 billion more than any governor in Virginia history. And I'm
Who's
just
counting?
getting warmed up. 147,000 new jobs since I've been governor. This is teamwork, all of us with the counties and the cities and my economic development team. But that's how you do it. But let's not we're in negotiations. I have no idea what's going to happen. I will negotiate the heck out of this to get a great deal for Virginia. And if we can't get it, then we walk away, as we do in a lot of deals, and we may walk away on this one. But you don't know unless you're at the table in negotiations.
I think your email person would express a feeling and opinion that no government, Virginia or county government, should pay for a brand new stadium. I think, and the city has said that. Jack Evans,
and I
who
agree with that too.
So the team will pay for the stadium. There will be infrastructure costs and whatever else. But you're not saying Virginia would ever pay $1 billion for a stadium,
Never.
and the district
Nor
won't,
have I.
nor would Maryland. So that's
No.
not the
Right.
negotiating stance.
And I referenced the recent
Right.
stadium deal with no taxpayer money involved. You do it through development rights. Everything's got to be your return on investment and see how you look at it. But because you're in serious negotiations, listen, they don't want to be where they are. We know that much. But Virginians should understand they already are a gigantic economic driver. We have their headquarters. We do have their training facility in Richmond. You know, that won the best deal done. I've been very public.
That's
I
true.
wasn't there. It was done before I got in. I wouldn't do a deal like that, to be honest with you. That's not a deal I would negotiate. But we'll see where we go. And I assume Governor Hogan and Mayor Bowser and Jack Evans and everybody else, we're all looking at it, as we do a lot of different projects together. And if it makes sense, great. If it doesn't, then, this is what I'm supposed to do, negotiate.
Governor Hogan hasn't really been out on front on this at all. In Rashawn Baker, the county executive from Prince George's, I mean, he's pretty much indicated they really want the FBI, 11,000 jobs from the FBI. That's a higher priority.
Well, I've seen Larry on the sidelines with me at the Redskins games, too, so don't think, don't let that silent, there might be negotiations going on.
Now, there is this FBI thing, 11,000 jobs in the next 8 to 10 years whenever they move to wherever they're going to move. Virginia has fought hard. You've got 2 sites. Maryland, Maryland has 2. Barbara Mikulski hopes by the end of this year, the FBI decision will be made before she leaves the Senate. And, of course, you've got 2 fairly powerful senators, one of whom might be vice president. Would you aggressively try to land the FBI team?
Oh,
now?
and we have been. In fact, Senator Warner
And you
I
acknowledge politically it would be a lot easier after January if there's a certain president and vice president who comes from Virginia.
And in all due respect to Senator Mikulski, she is a very, very strong advocate for the state of Maryland. Ranking on appropriations, there's a lot.
Van Hollen is no slouch if he wins, but he's not
that's
Barbara
right.
Mikulski.
Yeah, and we've met every
50
site.
years.
There's different issues with the sites and so forth, but we're aggressively. Of course, we've all been working on the FBI headquarters, and we've all been looking at these major projects. We just won a big Air Force Cyber Command in Virginia, so we're all looking at these different projects. But the good news for us in Virginia, I just announced Kojo the other day, 3.7% unemployment rate. It was 5.4 when I started. So we do have a lot of great economic activity going on in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But what really gets me fired up is I have all these high-paying jobs open in the technology space. We've got to fill them, and that goes to your education. It starts at pre-K, quality, making sure children get access to a nutritious breakfast, great teachers, and that builds that pipeline for many years to come.
Got to discuss the presidential campaign. You're, of course, heading up Hillary Clinton's campaign in Virginia. You're a longtime friend of the Clintons.
Yep.
We heard that she is so confident of Virginia, the campaign has pulled ads in the Commonwealth. Meanwhile, over the last few days, I'm seeing on local stations, it seems like every 10 minutes an ad from the Trump campaign. How confident is the Clinton campaign about Virginia, and what's the strategy?
Well, I mean, that's true. We have been very aggressive on the ground, a massive field operation on the ground, thousands of people. We've been working on this. The head of my PAC is now running the statewide. In fact, the national campaign manager ran mine. So, everybody's very attuned to what we're trying to do on the ground here on field. But you're right. Donald Trump bought $1.2 million last week just for Virginia. He's now off the air. He's done. I don't think the number is I don't want to get into numbers, but I don't think the numbers have moved at all. I feel very confident, but I'm not taking anything for granted, nor is anybody taking anything for granted. We've got to work hard. This is a unique election, but if you look at what we have on the ground, and I think Donald Trump, what he doesn't understand is it's identifying with the voters, it's talking to the voters, and then flushing them out on election day to go to the polls. That's an art in itself, and that takes a lot of time. You cannot do it on a short-time basis, but it's a continuum of talking to voters about issues that they care about, identifying, reminding them about the election, and that's how you drive voters out.
You just mentioned the importance of the military in the state of Virginia's economy. We can start with the Pentagon and go down from there across the board.
Yep.
This week there was this national security thing that Matt Lauer did on NBC.
Your network, I want you to know.
Well, I'm not speaking for my network.
Okay.
You can speak for Virginia, but I don't speak. I know that a lot of people thought that was a horrific interview because Trump just trashed Clinton mostly and has trashed the generals and trashed during the Obama administration. How important is that issue? Military support seems to be for Trump among active military
In addition to which he
voters.
suggested major new investments in the military and defense spending in your state is very important.
Yeah, and sure it is.
So where's all this fit?
Listen, obviously, you look at Virginia, as I say, 800,000 plus veterans we have. We transition out 10 to 15,000 a year from active duty. We want them to stay. That's why we've worked so hard, as I say, first state in America to get the award from the Department of HUD to have functionally ended veteran homelessness. You don't always, there's a day and point, which is called point in time, where you've ended it. But the next day, as you know, we're going to have homeless veterans. But the key is now we have a whole community, if there's a veteran out there, to move them into permanent housing. You look at our active duty, we have the largest naval base in the world, and you look at
excuse me, Gary, I buy all that, but I'm talking about Trump saying the Obama
let me
has...
tell you, all the stuff we do in Virginia,
Right.
and the work, the money that I've put in our community colleges to help our veterans so they can get that immediate, give them... We just did a thing with our corpsmen and medics. We're going to give you credit for what you got overseas in active duty. We're going to give you that credit for that. You can go right in the workforce. Our military is very appreciative of what we do in Virginia, and I think that translates to Hillary Clinton because of what goes on in Virginia. Okay. You know, I don't know what's Donald Trump done for him. I don't know.
When Trump says that the generals have been dumbed down, what are the words he used? Rubble, to reduce the rubble,
that is so
and suggests that your candidate Hillary Clinton would be no better. What is the political response to that?
I think he's taken a beating for saying that. We don't. We have the best generals in the world. I have a son in the United States Marine Corps. I'm going to tell you, I think this is why I've differed with Trump from day one. We have the greatest military in the world. He calls our military a disaster. We are the greatest military in the world. And the idea that you were trying to win an election by trashing our generals, by trashing our military, our admirals, we're the best in the globe, obviously.
And when is the candidate going to come back to the state? You got Tim Kaine, of course, right?
Tim is there today.
Right. I know.
Tim is with us tomorrow. So we have Tim here for 2 days here. I asked the same question. I'd like to see her back. But, you know, listen, if you look at the swing states, we're right at the top of being in the strongest right now. So,
one more very practical question before you go.
We're buying media in Arizona right now.
Oh, good.
One more very practical question before you go, and that is from Lisa in Loudoun County. Lisa, you are on the air. Go ahead, please. Lisa, are you there? Well, we can't hear Lisa, but Lisa apparently wants to talk about...
Yes, I'm here.
Go right ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to talk about both infrastructure, 21st century infrastructure, and economic development, both of which tie to the one most critical problem we have in western Loudoun County, which is lack of Internet access.
No Internet access in western Loudoun County.
Washington, D.C., and yet we do not have the proper Internet access to really be able to telework when we need to. My son cannot access all these things at school that he's supposed to be able to do, and there is no plan.
How long has that situation been going on, Lisa?
Since forever.
Oh,
since
it wouldn't have changed if he had
negotiated a contract of 15 years for what was cable service, and Internet service is connected to the cable service contracts. We still have 6 or 7 years left to wait before that can be renegotiated. And Comcast and Verizon have decided where and when they're going to put Internet access in, broadband, and they're not going to come back in and push it into the areas that are already developed and don't have enough density to make it worth their while. So we have third world solutions which are not acceptable.
Governor, is that a county decision?
It's a county decision. But and she raises a great point. And Lisa, you make sure before up if you can give your phone number to the operator here, because we'll get back to you on that. And I want to talk to Karen Jackson, my Secretary of Technology. That's obviously a contract that the county cut with, I guess, Comcast and Verizon, and they're slow walking areas that don't have enough density. I couldn't agree with Lisa more. Totally unacceptable. I mean, I've just put money in the budget to take broadband out to South Side and Southwest Virginia with these. How do we expect these folks out here who have lost coal, textile, furniture, and tobacco to start new businesses if you can't get access to the World Wide Web? You can't sell your product. I was in China last year meeting with Jack Ma, Alibaba. He said, we'd love to get some of your historic relative areas in Virginia to sell our products over here. But if you can't access the web, you can't do it. So that's why we have pushed this money into the budget to help broadband throughout the Commonwealth.
Lisa, most importantly,
but this is the first I've heard in Loudoun County.
Wow.
And we're going to get on it.
You're missing the live video stream of this broadcast, Lisa, and we can't have that continue for any longer.
I've heard of internet deserts.
Terry McAuliffe, thank you.
Loudoun County, one of the fastest growing counties, one of the wealthiest
Another reason
counties.
for the Jack Evans would say not to put the skins out there.
Terry McAuliffe.
Don't get me started.
Thank you so much for joining us. Terry McAuliffe is the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Yeah. Carl Racine, the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, will be joining us shortly. But
not yet.
Not yet. He's not running for mayor.
He had run for mayor, didn't he, Jay?
Not yet.
What are you saying?
Tom Sherwood, D.C. statehood campaign is kicking off.
The governor's like Jack Evans. We can't get him out of here.
This is true, and that's why they're squared off in the ring together. Their personalities are so similar.
Listen, I'm a Commonwealth of 8.5 million people. I love it. It's a beautiful little suburb of 650,000 people next to us. Thank you.
Can we have your security grab the governor and drag him out of here, please?
Thanks, everybody.
We need a larger exit sign.
Exactly, very good.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, thanks, everybody.
The D.C. statehood campaign that is kicking off.
Yes.
We get to vote in November on whether or not we want to become the new Columbia and the Constitution that will be on with the new Columbia. What's going on here, Tom?
Well, there's going to be a vote, and we're going to, I'm sure, overwhelmingly pass that the citizens of the District of Columbia, as they have had for decades, a desire to become a full jurisdiction in the United States of America and have full rights and responsibilities thereof. The question is, so we pass it, and what happens next? I mean, then the idea the mayor has is that we'll take this vote and go to Congress and appeal to the Congress to grant us statehood directly, not to go through the constitutional states of getting 27 states to agree. The question is, if the Republicans remain in charge of the Senate, this is going nowhere. If the Democrats win the Senate and maybe the White House, it has a better chance, but I don't know that the Democrats nationally have ever shown that much interest in making the district of state.
Joining us now in studio is Carl Racine. He is the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. Carl Racine, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Kojo and Tom.
The Post had an opinion piece today about letters from your office to landlords advising them that tenants had been involved in unlawful activities leading to tenants being evicted. What is the law that this falls under, and what should be the procedure to enforce it? The Post suggests that this approach is being used too zealously. Assembly line is the term they use, while it should be done on a case-by-case basis. They had some individuals there who obviously probably shouldn't have been evicted at all. Is there an issue, and what is your office doing to address it?
Well, here's the story, Kojo. Over the past 5 years or so, the Office of Attorney General worked very, very closely with the Metropolitan Police Department to ensure that nuisance properties and people who were making life miserable for their neighbors were being, prosecuted. And so, in a sense, we were partners with the police department. Where we thought there was illegal activity, the police would submit documents and affidavits to us, and we would proceed with a letter of eviction. Overwhelmingly, and I want to emphasize this, our prosecutors worked within the law. They were honest, and they were trying to do right by the community. There were instances, and troubling instances, 36 or so, where innocent people got letters of eviction. When we became aware of that under my tenure, my Public Safety Division chief, who is terrific, did the right thing. She recommended that we impose a moratorium on the process and slow down and really apply an independent check and balance as to when we were going to get involved in evictions. And that's exactly what we've done. We've not proceeded with an eviction since, if I'm not mistaken, the spring of 2018. of 2015.
Allow me to be clear, because it seems that prior to this, when the police conducted a raid, so to speak, on a property, they would then report it to your office, and your office would then start proceedings for the eviction of the tenant.
That's correct. So the police would inform us that they conducted a raid, that there was illegal contraband, be it weapons or narcotics. Oftentimes, the police reports were substantiated and bolstered by neighbor reports. We would then put the proper paperwork in place to begin eviction processes, notify the landlord that there was wrongdoing, criminal activity going on. What I'm telling the people of the District of Columbia today is that right now the Office of Attorney General is reviewing its process and is going to put in a process that makes clear that we review each case thoroughly on an individual basis, because the last thing we want to do is being involved in an eviction process that should not occur.
800-433-8850 is the number to call if you have questions for the Attorney General. You can also go to our website, kojoshow.org, ask a question or make a comment there, or shoot us an email to kojo@wamu.org.
So the law gives you the flexibility to take a longer look at these individually rather than just processing them because they've come over the transom. But the larger issue, the political large issue in this city, is that there are many lower income people who can't hang on to their apartments. And on the flip side are landlords, whether it's a person who owns one building, one house, or multiple units, says that the tenant laws are such that they cannot make money on their buildings because the tenants don't pay. It can be tied up for months and months and months. Where does all this fit into what you would do to solve the housing problem, where people can't afford to be staying here and landlords can't get their non-rent paying tenants out? It seems like a horrible mix.
It really is an extraordinarily complex scenario, and certainly the law comes into play here. The Office of Attorney General has made it clear that when it comes to protecting vulnerable citizens, oftentimes poor people, we're going to make sure that when they're tenants, the landlord must maintain the property. Tom, you're aware of the action that we brought last year relative to 4 buildings in the Congress Heights area. Mm-hmm. That's where we had a developer in town, well-known developer who contributes a lot of money to politicians.
You can say the name, it's legal.
I'll pass on that for now, but you'll remind me of the name. At any rate, in that instance, the developer bought the set of buildings, 4 buildings. At the time the developer purchased that building, 150 residents lived there, had been living there for decades. The developer proceeded then to not maintain that property, essentially constructively evicting these tenants. Today, only 15 remain. We brought suit against that developer because we believe that that developer was consciously trying to evade the Tenant Occupancy Purchase Act laws that would allow those tenants to have a stake in those buildings.
Where does it stay? Where does that stand now?
It's a very successful suit. We're happy that the court has a quarterly monitorship over the case to ensure that the tenants' conditions are being maintained. And indeed, there's a second suit that we're not involved with where the tenants are seeking money damages.
Can I ask about another matter of... You present yourself as very aggressive on these issues. My colleague and friend Paul Wagner from Channel 5 is here today, in part because he's trying to do stories about some cases that fall under your purview, where he would like to see some police video in 5 cases. I think he said 4 cases of conviction and 1 of acquittal, where the police video, which is fairly new in this city, has been released in court as evidence, but he cannot get the video to see it himself. Why is that such a problem? It would seem if it were released in court as evidence, it would be readily available.
It's tricky. And I saw Paul's story, and I respect his reporting, and I respect his tenacity in regards to seeking what he believes should be a public record. Here's why the Office of Attorney General did not provide those body-worn camera videos that were admitted into court to Mr. Wagner. We didn't do it because we have a statute that we're obligated to follow. And that statute says that a request for body-worn camera recording may only be submitted to the Metropolitan Police
That
Department.
excludes evidence submitted in court? It excludes? That seems like a very narrow reading because evidence, that doesn't say, that seems awfully narrow, sir.
I understand your point, and I respect your lawyering skills, Mr. Sherwood.
Well, I yield to you on that, but it just seems if it's evidence in court and the case has been adjudicated, why wouldn't the evidence be available?
Well, here's the deal. Sometimes, when it comes to law, unfortunately, it gets a little complicated, and it's not necessarily, doesn't lend itself to an easy soundbite. So what gets complicated here is this statute, which I understand can be viewed narrowly as you just did, but reasonable people might view it more broadly. In addition to this statute, there are actual cases, D.C. Circuit cases, that talk about the privacy rights that people have, notwithstanding the fact that they were involved in a public court process. So what we're doing is we're following the law. Let me finish this point, though, because I think, again, Paul's requests were made in good faith. Here's what we've done. We have provided the tapes to the Metropolitan Police Department. We have recommended to the Metropolitan Police Department that should Paul call or write and ask for those very tapes, please release them to him.
Okay, the media in general is worried about the how quickly these tapes are being made available, so that's good. All right, good.
Okay, we're going to move on to another issue, but that doesn't mean you can leave, Paul, because that issue has been dealt with so far. It was somewhat of a surprise to hear outgoing D.C. Police Chief Cathy Lanier offer very critical comments about the district's judicial system, citing her frustration as one of the reasons she has stepped down. Her assessment was that the justice system is, quoting her, beyond broken. Would you agree with that? And if so, what are the biggest issues as you see it? What's the problem?
I respect Chief Lanier greatly, and I've worked with her, in the last 19 months quite closely. I respectfully disagree with our police chief and the Washington Post editorial board, and indeed Mayor Bowser, who went out and proclaimed that the D.C. criminal justice system is irreparably broken. Frankly, that's not the case. If you look at the District of Columbia from the perspective of people in law enforcement throughout the country, here's what they would tell you. They would tell you, first, D.C. has the best public defender service in the country, without peer. They would next say the D.C. Superior Court is always viewed as one of the top 5 state trial courts in America. Third, they would say that the federal agencies that support the D.C. criminal justice system, albeit not D.C., and as a D.C. elected official, I sure wish that we had entire autonomy over our criminal justice system.
No, you don't, yes.
Those agencies are extremely well-funded and provide substantial assistance to the District of Columbia. So to me, the point is really not whether the system is irreparably broken. I'm saying that it is not. The point is, what can we do to improve it? What are examples of extraordinary collaboration, cooperation, accountability, and transparency? And I'm here to tell you that there are many.
Or, for that matter, examples of extraordinary breakdowns. It seems that a lot of people in communities are absolutely mystified about how violent offenders who have a record of violent offenses have been convicted, sentenced, and within what seems to them to be a remarkably short time are back in their communities committing violent crimes again.
And I, too, am outraged when we have folks who have been in the system who come back out and hurt innocent people. Let me be clear. I live right by 14th and U. I live with my 82-year-old mother. Every time my mother goes to the store, Trader Joe, for those moments, I am worried about my mom. So I understand the perception of fear and real fear in the system, and I think it is absolutely incumbent on every player involved in the criminal justice system to attack those imperfections, be accountable to the public, be more forthcoming, frankly, in telling the people where we've made mistakes and what we're doing to fill those gaps.
Would it be better for if the city had its own, like a normal place in America, that the prosecution for felonies and violent crimes, which does not reside in your office, was resided in a local prosecutor, not the U.S. Attorney's Office, which deals with international espionage and national and international cases. Meanwhile, our cases here, as I understand the Chief, she said this before, Mayor Bowser said it last year in Ward 7 or 8 last year, that too many violent criminals do, just as Kojo said, get back out too quickly, too easily. A local prosecutor, maybe local judges not appointed by the president and confirmed by the Congress, but judges attributable and accountable to the people, might have a better system.
Well,
but
look,
in the meantime, what can we do?
Well, let me just talk about that point of accountability. I totally agree with Eleanor Holmes Norton, with Mayor Bowser. When it comes to prosecution, we need to get to a place where the Office of Attorney General, the local prosecutor, is responsible for prosecuting local crime. That level of accountability is necessary. And as Mayor Bowser said the other day, ultimately she faces it, and so does this Attorney General, at the ballot box.
Right.
That would be a good thing.
Speaking of the ballot box, are you going to run for re-election? There's some thoughts that you're going to run for mayor for the 2018 campaign. If you do, you'd probably, like Mayor Bowser did, announce a year early. What is your political plans as being the first elected Attorney General? Will you finish your term? Will you run for mayor? What will you do?
Well, I can just tell you how I feel right now. And how I'm feeling right now is that it is an extraordinary privilege to serve this great district as its Attorney General. And I am focused on that job. I love that job. As I sit here today thinking about the future, I think there's a lot that can be done from the perch of the Office of Attorney General.
In the 5 minutes or so we have left, there's several issues that we still haven't had a chance to discuss. The Office of People's Counsel recently filed an appeal against the D.C. Public Service Commission's decision to approve the Exelon-Pepco merger. You expressed reservations about that merger, but what are your thoughts on the move by the People's Counsel?
We certainly support their notice of appeal, Kojo. In fact, we filed our own notice of appeal. We think that there were problems both in terms of process with respect to the way the commission issued its final order, as well as issues related to errors in substantive law. We think it's an uphill climb, but we are appealing.
I want to go next to Phil, who is on our guest line, who will take us into the next issue you want to discuss. Phil, you are on the air. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Kojo. Good show. I want to ask, given the thing that you covered recently about the Fort Myer business and all that, I want to ask two questions. First, when the Attorney General first became Attorney General, he was at loggerheads with the mayor over the extent of his ability to deal with contract law. That's the first thing. The second thing is he introduced draft legislation to council that would pretty much put an end to pay for play. I want to know how that's going, please.
Recent shakeup at the Department of General Services included the director stepping down, 2 employees being fired over the issue that Phil is discussing. D.C. Councilmember Mary Che called for an investigation. One of those fired retained a lawyer claiming he was let go to appease a donor. What might be your office's role in all of this?
First, let me just answer the caller's questions
Yes.
there. Indeed, the Office of Attorney General in our first days, did have a disagreement with the Office of the Mayor as to whether the Office of Attorney General should review for legal sufficiency all contracts that the District of Columbia enters, especially large contracts. The mayor's team took the position that it didn't need an independent Office of Attorney General review, that it could review it itself. I think the record is clear that the public is far better off, and indeed the executive office of the mayor is better off when it has an independent review by a non-political attorney general with career lawyers opining on the legality of contracts. And I think that the residents of the District of Columbia should continue to urge that requirement. Second, we did submit campaign finance law, and that law seeks to do many things. I'll only focus on pay-to-play legislation that would preclude government contractors, people who are seeking money for provision of goods and services from the District of Columbia, from contributing to campaigns and politicians. It's the right thing to do. It can be done easily. It removes the taint, the appearance of impropriety.
You're close to the Clinton people. You worked in the Clinton administration, I believe. Would you rule out a job in the Hillary Clinton administration if she wins in November and takes office in January?
I know if I need to have a headhunter looking for me for other positions, I'm going to hire Tom Sherwood. No, let me tell you something. I am so supportive of Hillary Clinton. In fact, on my own
Rule
time,
out. I know you're campaigning, and that's why I'm saying that a lot of people who campaign for politicians want to work for them. Would you rule out, or would you just leave it open as you just did, maybe running for mayor? I'm not going to get you to close any door today, am I?
Yeah, no door will be closed today, and I loved working with the Clintons.
In about the minute or so we have left, there's been a surge of complaints in our region about a scam in which people impersonate the IRS. I received one such call at my home. What is your office doing about this, and what are you advising the public to do?
Yeah, it's terrible, and oftentimes these folks who make these calls, they prey on our most vulnerable citizens, senior citizens who are necessarily more trusting. What we're doing and what we've done is we've gone out in community meetings and certainly on the internet, and we're just educating folks that whenever anyone represents themselves to be the IRS and is demanding money from you and is asking for a check or a credit card, you know that's not the IRS. The IRS does not do that. The IRS sends a letter, usually a letter of notice of intent or a warning about a potential deficit, and then it follows up pursuant to that letter. Do not respond to anyone claiming to be the IRS.
And I'm afraid that's about all the time we have. You got a 10-second question?
I have none that he'll answer.
Well, that's it for the show today. But remember, there's always more online and in person. Next Monday, WMU's Ali Schweitzer will be at Kramer Books interviewing author Franz Nicolay. They'll start at 6:30 at the DuPont Circle store, so don't be late. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled for those books the D.C. Library Foundation is hiding around the city. Find out why they're doing it and what to do if you find one at kojoshow.org/blog. Be sure you never miss a show again, and what to do if you find one. Be sure you never miss a show again. You can subscribe to the broadcast via your favorite podcast app. On Monday, federal prosecutors won't retry former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. We'll look at what it means for Virginia ethics in the ethics rules in the Commonwealth. That's coming up Monday at noon. Carl Racine, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kojo.
Carl
Good to see you,
Racine is
Tom.
the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. Tom Sherwood, thank you for being here, as
Have a
always.
nice weekend.
Thank you all for listening. I'm Kojo Nnamdi.